Morris County needs our Spanish-speaking community to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and childcare programs, less for schools and student lunches, less for senior citizens, less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, social security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, the Phoenix Tube Company, the law firm of Declator Cohen and DePrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and General Needs Charity, serving our homeless veterans with dignity. And now, here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you. No, not Mark and AJ. It's Mark Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. I think we're going to have to change that intro. It hasn't been Mark and AJ for like the entire pandemic. So we're definitely going to have to change that. Interesting tonight also, Mike and Ryan are running the board. George is overseeing it. So if there are any technical glitches, just bear with us. It's their first time. It's a rookie outing. And I'm sure they'll do well. It's time now for the Capcom Major League Baseball report. And with baseball underway, it means that warm weather is here. And it's a great time to keep those windows and doors open. Let the fresh air in, keep the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and a patented speed reducer so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for free estimates. Purchase a unit, mention Sports Talk New York, and get it with free installation. That's 631-440-1100 or visit clearviewlongisland.com. All right, John. So, before this afternoon, basically, I think we were going to focus on how well the Yankees were doing and how poorly the Mets were doing. But all that changed when, midway into the second or third inning, I get a press release from the New York Mets saying that Yoenis Cespedes hasn't shown up and we don't really know where he is. And then later, after the game, I was part of the Zoom press conference with Brody Van Wagen and basically said, Yoenis Cespedes has opted out of the season due to COVID. I guess he's worried, and as well he should be. I mean, I don't know if this season's going to make it through. But, in the entire Yoenis Cespedes saga, this is just the fitting end to it. It's just ridiculous that the guy didn't have enough class to either come to the team. How about saying goodbye to your teammates? And listen, the guy worked his butt off to get back and to try and play. But I don't know. For me, it smells like, I'm not doing very well. My timing's off. I can't run. And if any team's looking at me, I'm not going to get that big free agent contract. So maybe I should just opt out and hope someone's going to offer me a big free agent contract. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to throw another wrinkle in there because the Post just reported that Cespedes had been frustrated with his lack of playing time. He's gotten plenty of playing time, but he's gotten benched a couple of times recently. And there are incentive clauses in his contract that are tied to at-bats being in part. So maybe that could have had something to do with it. And apparently he knew via Zoom call before he even got out of the hotel that he wasn't gonna be in the lineup. And now all of a sudden he doesn't show up and he says, I'm gone, and or he doesn't even say anything.
No, doesn't say anything.
Then they just find out, well, yeah, he's opted out because of COVID concerns. So, which now that could still be the case, but that little wrinkle in there, it kind of tells me maybe there was a little something more to that. And listen, if the Mets are shaving at bats off of his docket to prevent bonuses, then that's shady. But the other side of that is that Cespedes hasn't been going so well lately. He was 2 for 15 recently, and with a right-hander in, they do want to get Dom Smith some more playing time. So it's hard to even say. It's hard to say that the Mets were doing this as a cost-cutting measure. It wouldn't surprise me, but the evidence doesn't point to that in this case.
Yeah, it'd be ironic if it was, considering that they were playing the Atlanta Braves and Eddie Echeverria at the same time. Which was also a cost-cutting move where they basically sent him down when he was about to make his incentives. Listen, even if all of that is true, the guy owes it to his teammates to come in and say, listen, guys, it's been a pleasure playing with you, pleasure going to war with you. But listen, there are a lot of indications. And listen, and it's a week into the season, a week plus, and I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I'm not going to throw Rojas under the bus, but you're seeing these little things where you get a player like Cespedes opting out. You get Diaz, whose entire body language on the mound is not good. The fact that your hitting coach is doing things remotely. Granted, the Mets' batting average is, I think, 3rd or 4th in the National League. It's worse, the worst in the league with runners in scoring position. So I can't really kill him on that either. Hefner, listen, Phil Reagan, you got to say, did a better job in that limited time than what's going on now with this pitching staff. We thought that the bullpen was going to get better. The one guy you could count on now, you can't count on Lugo even. So I really don't know where this team is going. I felt confident that this team was going to contend for first place. And then when they added that second layer of playoffs into the system, I said, all right, they just got to hover around 500. Granted, they played the Braves a lot. They still haven't played some of the weaker teams, but they haven't shown that, there's no energy on that team. Am I wrong?
No, there's no energy. I mean, I give a pass to Hefner, though, because with all of it, Lugo is having some problems. Diaz, to me, only really had one bad outing. I don't consider the home run against Ozuna a bad outing. I think the outing where he did not look good was the 3rd outing of the season for him. And also, he's working with a pitching staff that has basically replaced Syndergaard and Wheeler with Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha. So I can't really kill him. But yeah, there's no energy, and honestly, it doesn't help when a guy like Pete Alonso isn't hitting. They haven't gotten that big clutch hit to knock in a whole bunch of runs. At one point they led the league in hits, but Pete Alonso's batting 200, and when you have your linchpin, your 2nd or 3rd hitter in the lineup not hitting, then that's going to make a difference when you're getting a whole bunch of runners on base, but you're not knocking them in. You're not getting runs. They had 10 hits today, but no runs. So I think there are certain things that are big problems. Energy's a little bit, Alonso a little bit, the back end of the rotation a little bit. It's a little bit of everything.
Agreed, and I don't think they're going to take a big hit with not having Cespedes. I think the team has so many guys that are DH. Right. This
is going to get Dominic Smith a lot more playing time, and I think the Mets might even be better for it.
I agree. Listen, when you have a guy who, if he's your DH and if he hits a home run or not, and he gets a single and you have to take him out because he can't run the bases, that's a problem, especially in the first inning. Runs count no matter what inning they're in. So if you get Cespedes on in the first inning and he can't move over to second base, he clogs up the bases, that is a legitimate problem. All right, we got
how about the game where Cespedes was pinch run for, and then he had in the 8th, and then his spot had a chance to knock in some runs, but in the 9th or 10th, but instead of Cespedes, it was Eduardo Nunez.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that is a problem. All right, John, thanks so much. John Coppinger, heard here each and every week over 540 AM Sports Talk New York. We are going to take a quick break, and on the other side, a spot that I've been looking forward to all week, the one and only Don Cherry. So keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen & DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Mike Capece, Ryan Sherman with you this Sunday evening. Joining us now is the man who played one game with the Boston Bruins, later coached the team for 5 seasons after concluding a successful playing career in the American Hockey League. From 1986 to 2019, he co-hosted Coach's Corner during CBC's Saturday Night NHL hockey broadcast with Ron McLean. Nicknamed Grapes, he's known for his outspoken manner and opinions, his flamboyant dress. By the 2018-19 season, he and McLean had hosted Coach's Corner for 33 seasons. He also created the video series Rock'em Sock'em Hockey, which took up tremendous space in my house year after year when it was on VHS, that's for sure. He was voted by viewers as the 7th greatest Canadian of all time in the CBC miniseries, The Greatest Canadian. In March 2010, his life was dramatized in a 2-part CBC movie, Keep Your Head Up, based on a script written by his son, Timothy. In 2012, CBC aired a sequel, The Wrath of Grapes. It is a thrill to welcome the one and only Don Cherry to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, I sound like a pretty good guy there. I keep going. That was pretty good, I got to tell you. I'm doing good, thank you.
That's great. So, you know what? First off, hockey's restarted, and we're in the playoffs. And I have to imagine it's hard for you, as it's the first time in probably 40-some-odd years you're not in a booth somewhere talking about it. On top of everything else that's changed in the world, so our views of normal are different. What has this particular weekend been like for you with hockey playoffs and you not in a booth somewhere?
Well, I really feel strange that when I see the hockey being played, and it's pretty good hockey too, I have to admit. The NHL has done a great job, but it seems awful strange that I'm not involved somehow. But I have my podcast as Timothy and the Sunday, but it does seem strange after all these years not to be. I think I started about in the 80s, early 80s, and got the gas, and as they say, as last year. So I've been in it a long time, and I do miss it.
So we want to talk about your amazing career, but before we get that, let's get the big question out of the way. November 9th, 2019, during Coach's Corner, you made remarks that suggested Canadian immigrants benefit from the sacrifices of veterans, and they do not wear remembrance poppies. You said, you people out there, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey, at least you can pay a couple of bucks for a poppy or something like that. These guys paid for your way of life you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Now, surely that could have been taken as offensive, but over the course of 38 plus years, it's pretty mild to some of the other things you've said. You hired Don Cherry. You know what you're getting. So, in fact, I told the guys here, it's like you hire Tiger Williams. You don't expect him to be Wayne Gretzky. So were you surprised by the rapid backlash, the quick dismissal? And if you had to do that segment all over again, would you do it differently or issue an apology? Or was that even something that the CBC brought up after the fact?
No, I would not. The apology that, and it's funny, I'm reading a book on Vimy right now on the First World War, and it just, I cannot believe the things I've done before. But I think I think that the way the world is today, I think people are a little sensitive like that, and yeah, I still believe that they should have. Anybody that comes here should wear a poppy. Now, a poppy is. We wear it on November Remembrance Day, and and what it does is the money that was taken that it helps the troops and their families and that. And yeah, I said it, and I would not apologize then, and I'm not apologizing now.
So we mentioned the two CBC movies. We were lucky enough to have your son Tim on when the first one premiered, as well as Jared Kiso, who played you in the film. Over the course of doing this show for 15 plus years, we always get to talk about coaches that had impact on a player's life. I remember while watching the film, and I realized as much as coaches, parents or a wife can have maybe the biggest impact. And I thought about you because I think without Rose, Don Cherry never gets that one game in the NHL and never gets a chance to coach in the NHL. If I recall in the film, you moved something like 53 times during your life. What did Rose's belief and the sacrifices she made for you mean in the terms of your hockey career?
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about that today. I don't know why, but I was thinking about when I come home and told her I was playing for Springfield Indians, which was the Devil's Island of all hockey. They used to send people there. And New York used to send guys there if they were bad. Phil Watson, some of the guys, people would remember him. But anyhow, he used to send them there if they were bad. And I was sent down to a lower league. And I remember I come home and told Rose we're going to Three Rivers. Now, she came from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And, you know, it is a beautiful spot in Pennsylvania. She's, where the hell is... Where is Three Rivers, Quebec? And I said, I don't know, but we're going to go there. And, you know, she could have gone home to her mother and everything. And I packed up the car, and I'll never forget watching her pack the car. That we had a cardboard box, and I remember putting in half of the sugar and half of the corn syrup and ketchup and stuff like that. We couldn't throw it away because we couldn't afford it. And she stuck with me for all those years. And traveling around 53 times, believe me, when I come home and say, well, we've been traded again, and never complained once. Never complained once, and I have to laugh now when I hear the wives of the players now, they get traded, and they just feel so bad. They're moving from $1 million house to another $1 million house. So you're absolutely right. I would never, and we used to drink pretty good back in those days, and some of the guys that are listening now remember we used to drink pretty good, and you know, and instead of having 10 beers, I'd have 8 beers to come home. So you're absolutely right. I would never have been coach the Boston Bruins. I would never have had the chance to coach the Boston Bruins.
You played your junior hockey with the Barrie Flyers and the Windsor Spitfires in the Ontario Hockey League. You won the Memorial Cup as a defenseman with Barrie in 1953. You dropped out of high school, and in 1954, you signed with the American Hockey League's Hershey Bears, where your first head coach was Murray Henderson. And looking at Henderson's life and career, he seems like a guy to me that you must have had a lot of respect for. He played your position for 8 years in the NHL. He was a former member of the Royal Canadian Air Force. He was stationed on the Pacific Coast where he flew patrol missions. He was a nephew of hockey royalty, the Conacher brothers, Roy, Lionel, and Charlie, who were all inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. What was your takeaway for playing for Murray?
I remember when I first went there, I watched him play, and I thought, holy smokes, he doesn't make the National Hockey League. And he was a player coach back then. I'll never forget him. And yeah, it was tough back then. There were 6 teams, only 6 teams, and they carried 5 defensemen, so that was 30. I think there's 300 right now that's in the National Hockey League. So the first thing when I saw him was not his war record or anything, because he's not in the National Hockey League, but he was a real gentleman, and I think he was there for 2 years. And then we had Frank Mathers, and he was a player coach, and he was even better. So it was tough making the National Hockey League back in those days, I'll tell you. But I remember Murray Henderson. I knew he was in the Army. I didn't know all that what you just said.
So the first season in the AHL, the Bears, despite winning a pair of games in the final weekend, miss out the playoffs, actually for the first time in 5 years. You, as well as Norm Cochran and Gordy Wilson, get called up. You get to play in the playoffs against Montreal. Tell me what you remember about who told you that you were getting called up and everything, surrounding that one game.
It was a funny thing. I forget who told me. I think there was a coach told me, Corcoran and I, Normie, we were going up, and we went up, and I didn't expect to play. I think we got $100 a game, and I think Warren Godfrey hurt his wrist or something, or Fernie Flaman, and I played, and I started. Now, before the game, Milt Schmidt was the coach, and he told Hal Lako, who was playing, who had really been carved up by Rocket Richard, that he was going to stand in honor Rocket Richard, and Rocket was the guy who was suspended for the playoffs. I'm kind of get involved here, but Rocket was he was suspended for the playoffs for hitting Leko, and Leko had to stand in honor of him being the second. It was unbelievable, and I was at center ice. I was just a kid, 19-year-old kid, and I remember Bernie Jeffrey Boom Jeffrey he won the scoring title, and he come on the ice, and everybody booed in Montreal. I couldn't understand that. And Rocket Richard come on right after, and Rocket Richard got a standing ovation. And they told me after that Boom passed the Rocket by 3 or 4 points, but not till he should have let the Rocket win the scoring championship, because that was the only time. It was unbelievable, and I took a regular shift. I don't think I was on for any gold, and that was my one game. And then I played baseball, which I loved. I love baseball. I still think Jim Kelly got too many games. But anyhow, I broke my shoulder, and they had told me not to play baseball, and like a fool, I did play. And I was destined for the next 16 years in minor hockey after that.
Well, yeah, because it's interesting, because you read all the accounts of that series, and you read what Coach Schmidt said after that game, and he was counting on the three of you to be part of the team going into that next season. You injured your foot playing baseball, and that really changed your entire career for sure. You played almost 20 years playing in the minor leagues. The list of coaches and teammates are pretty impressive. Some of the coaches were Frank Mathers, Punch Imlach, Lynn Sonmore, Pat Egan, and a huge majority of your game under Joe Crozier. Which coach had the greatest impact on the way you saw the game and how to teach the game?
Well, Punch Imlach, who coached he came from the Quebec League, and I remember he was in the told Shore off and everything like that. And I couldn't believe it. He was told the owner off, and he said that he was going to go to the National Hockey League and win the Stanley Cup. I said, sure, little ball guy. By golly, next year he went to Toronto Maple Leafs, and he won. I think he was 4 Stanley Cups. So I'd have to say Punch Imlach was he knew how to handle people. And then he went to National Hockey League, and there was a few guys up there that he put psychiatrists. But he was a tough guy, but he was the best coach I think I ever played for.
You also got a chance to be a teammate of your brother, Dick. What was that experience like, getting to play in a professional game with your brother?
Well, my brother was 3 years younger. He was a rookie coming in, and I how in the world he ever got into playing for Eddie Shore, I don't understand. But it was the year Punch was there, and it was Boston. Boston was in there 1 year. He was only there 1 year. And Richard, my brother, he played for Philadelphia for 2 years, and he played for Boston, I think, 1 year. So he was a better hockey player. He was smarter than me too. He's a principal, and he was a principal in school too. So he was a better hockey player and smarter in life too.
So after almost 20 years of going to a rink somewhere, you find yourself out of hockey. First, you're a Cadillac salesman, then a construction worker, then a house painter. In the middle of 1971-72, you become the coach of the American Hockey League's Rochester Americans. How did that job come about?
Well, I was unemployed, and I feel for all the guys that are unemployed, because I was unemployed for 6 months, and it's the worst feeling in the world. You feel you're a failure in life if you really want to work. And I got a call from one of the lawyers there, Bob Clark, and he asked me if I coached high school hockey, and we'd won the championship and everything. So I knew how to change lines. I remember my first time coaching the high school. I was very, very nervous. You don't know how to change lines and everything. And I learned how to change lines and how to run a practice and everything in high school. So then then I made a comeback, and then I was fired, and I couldn't get another job, and it was terrible. And Bob Clark phoned me and asked me, 8 owners had bought the Vancouver Canucks, Rochester Americans off the Vancouver Canucks, and did I want to coach? Did I want to coach any job? And he said $15,000. I think everybody else was getting about $45,000. I hung up, and And Rose said, well, why don't you be general manager, Stu? So I phoned him right back and I said, I'll be general manager, Stu. He said, same money? So I was general manager and coach for $15,000 and happy to have it, believe me. So I said to him, I said, well, how many players do we have? And he says, one. I said, well, who was that? He says, you. So I was a scout too. So who came to my rescue in Rochester was Emile Francis, who's coached the New York Rangers. And I got a lot of guys that didn't make Providence, and they were on their way to Port Huron, I think. And I got them, and thankful for them. It hadn't have been for Emile Francis, I don't know where I'd been in the New York Rangers. And I remember they had a guy named Bob Kelly, and that's the one guy I wanted was Battleship Kelly.
Wow.
And I got him. I think they wouldn't in Baltimore. They wouldn't pay him $500. So I got him, and I mean Dennis Ball. I keep throwing these names out there. I know nobody knows them. No. Dennis Ball was the number one scout.
Trust me, our audience knows because our show also goes out with a video component in a chat room. And one of our loyal listeners, Barry Shelley, actually sent me this question just now while you're talking about this. He says, ask him about a player named Herman Karp. Herman always told me that Don signed him to a contract to Rochester without ever seeing him play. Always wanted to know if it was true.
Yes, it was, and he was a terrific hockey player. He's still alive. He's still around. I hear him once in a while. And Herman Karp, he right now he'd be making about $7 million playing right now. He was a finesse player like Jean Rattel. He reminded me of Jean Rattel.
Wow.
And so I remember all those guys.
All right.
And
so our listeners, when you mention players, they know it. Trust me. So you won Coach of the Year. The following year, the title of General Manager was added. And in your third season behind the bench, you're voted the AHL's Coach of the Year. Harry Sinden wants you to replace Bep Gwidlin, who resigned, but your loyalty to the Amerks was a stumbling block. Can you tell us, why it was such a stumbling block and how you finally accepted the job to coach the Bruins?
Well, actually, believe it or not, how stupid I was. I did not. I wanted a job with Boston Bruins. Who wouldn't? But I thought I remained loyal to the Rochester Americans, and they told me, said, look, we're not going to hold you back. We're making lots of money here and everything. And he said, you rescued us. So, we're not going to worry about it. You go. And I turned down Harry Sinden. I turned him down right at the first. And then I turned around after I talked to those guys and Rose, naturally. And I remember she said, well, I don't have any clothes to go to the National Hockey League. and Timothy said, you mean we're going to meet Bobby Orr? And I said, yeah, me too. So I was really happy about all that. And but Rochester, what a great spot that was. And I owe everything to them making a comeback there. And Doug Adams was a coach, and he ended up fired me at the end. It was an intricate affair in Rochester, but I love Rochester too.
It's interesting because the day the deal is finalized, here's the quote from the newspaper that day. I'm not going to change my coaching philosophy. I'm not going to change in any way. If I didn't think I could do the job, I never would have taken it. The thing is, to tell you the truth, I'm ready for Boston. Is Boston ready for me? So here's the question I have for you. Your coaching resume at that point is stellar. Your playing, resume was not bad, but it paled in comparison to what you did behind the bench. Was there ever a point in your minor league playing career that you had your same belief in your game as you did that day you got hired to be a coach? Because those are pretty, you're 40 years old at that time, and that's your first job as a coach in the NHL. And it's a pretty ballsy statement to make, especially in Boston.
No, I didn't. I did not as a player. I had resigned myself to the American Hockey League. I was lucky. I felt I was in the light. But when I became coach, I was like I was born to be a coach. I just loved it. I just loved it being a coach. I could hardly wait till the game started, especially in Rochester. I thought it was great. And so I have to admit one thing. My first year in Boston, I did not do a good job. I thought I did a good job, but I just did not do a good job. I went from the sweatshops of Rochester, and I wasn't too impressed with what was going on in Boston. But the second year, I went right back to the way I was in Rochester, and that's when we made the first place every year. So my first year, I don't think I did a good job at all. Although Bobby Orr was fantastic. I mean, maybe I did a good job with him, but he was. I'm thinking he had 46 goals. Listen to this. This is the defenseman. It's hard to believe, people listening. 46 goals, 89 assists, and he was plus 123, and he had over 100 minutes of penalties. Can you imagine what he'd be worth today?
No.
I mean, it was fantastic. So I did not do a good job my first year coaching. I thought I could have done a better job.
So you mentioned Bobby Orr and his success, even though you said, you think you could have done a better job. But what went into changing the philosophy there in Boston, where they had so much success before? You brought a different style. Did you know that you were bringing that style from day one, or did you have to adjust into it?
Tell you the truth, the first year they said, "Don't worry," not Bobby Orr, but a few guys on the team. "Don't worry, we'll be there when the bell rings." I just wasn't tough enough. But the second year, I was tough enough, and Harry Sinnen, he told me, he says, "Look, I hired a guy that coached in Rochester. I want you to go back, and when we come back the second year, I want you to be that guy that coached in Rochester." I remember I played that. I forget who was by the Stones. I think "Won't Get Fooled Again." I played that over and over and over and over again, and I wasn't fooled again. And the second year, we were first spot, and we were first spot every year. We were in the finals. Unfortunately, we ran into Montreal, who, their greatest team ever was in the National Hockey League. And that 76 team, I think they lost one game at home. Anyhow, Boston Bruins were great too. We were the second best team in the league.
Absolutely. It's interesting because when Ryan brought that up, you basically modeled your team and the playing style after your dog Blue, which was a feisty bull terrier. You transitioned from a team that was at that point basically Orr and Esposito, both highly skilled scorers. Their impending departures had you remake the team with enforcers and grinders, which later became known as the Lunch Pail Gang, and the Big Bad Bruins. Espo and Vadnais traded to the Rangers. How much input did you have on that trade, and was it something that you might have been a little worried as they were like fan favorites, and now all of a sudden, it could be viewed like, all right, new coach, he's pushing these guys out. How much input did you have on that actual trade?
I had a lot of input on it, and we wouldn't have made first spot. Bobby was hurt at the time, and Bobby Orr was hurt at the time, and to get Park, I remember Park when he played in Buffalo for a while, and I remember playing junior, and he had a bad knee, and I remember, and he had a bad knee, and Jean Rattel, what a class guy he was from New York Rangers, and he had a bad back, but I knew they had to be babied a little, and I wouldn't have Park do practice once in a while, and Jean Rattel wouldn't practice in that, and I think Jean Rattel led the league, led the team in scoring one time, so we were very fortunate, and I had a lot to do with it. I did not want to give away Carl Vadnais, who went to New York Rangers, because we wanted to give Dallas Smith, but Emil wouldn't take him. I did not want to give away Carl Vadnais because he was a friend of mine and he was a good defenseman. But to get a guy like Park and Rattel, I think it was Joe Zanussi called himself the greatest spare tire of all time. But anyhow, to get those two guys, we had to give something up. And Phil Esposito was really something too. Phil had scored 76 goals and 65 goals the last 2 years. So, we weren't, he wasn't chopped liver or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't want you, you're talking to a Ranger fan here, and you can't insult me by saying you didn't want to give up Carl Vadnais. Even if you gave up Carl Vadnais, the fact that you got Rick Middleton for Ken Hodge more than makes up for it. So don't complain, okay? No complaining on that.
No, that was it. I remember, Harry, I had seen Ricky Middleton play in Providence, and he had long hair and looked terrible. And so Harry said, you know this guy Middleton? I said, yep. And he said, I saw him play. I played against. I coached against him. And he said, what kind of a guy is he? I said, I don't know about that. I don't know how he lives and everything, but I'll tell you one thing. He can go the one way, and that's offensive. I don't know about defensive, but he can go the one way. And so they made the trade, and the very first game he got a hat trick.
Yep.
He was a beauty. I had trouble with him playing defensively, but I'll tell you one thing, boy, he was a great hockey player, and how he's not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. He got 500 goals, and he's still not in the Hall of Fame, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Your approach of balance over brilliance rejuvenated the Bruins. They continue to be one of the NHL's best teams during the latter half of the 70s, capturing the division title 4 straight seasons from 75-76 through 78-79. 77-78 season, you coached the Bruins team to an NHL record of 11 players with 20 goals or more in a single team. You won the Jack Adams Award as the NHL Coach of the Year in 76. Bruins made the Stanley Cup Finals twice, both times, as you mentioned, losing to the arch rivals, the Montreal Canadiens, in both 77 and 78. The first was a 4-game sweep, the second a 6-game series. Was one of those cup losses more devastating than the other? And then looking back all these years later, isn't, making it to the finals, I've spoken to so many players over the years, and when they don't win that cup, there's like this tremendous amount of regret and remorse. But isn't just making the finals, especially back in the day, something that you can take immense pride in?
No, in hockey, we don't go for, and you'll see, if you have to win it. It doesn't make any difference whether you make the final. It should. But if you don't win it, we don't go for silver medal or anything like that. If you don't make the gold, and that was a tough one. Which one was the toughest? Was the last one? I think we were winning. We had them, and we really did have them with I think 2 minutes to go, around 2 minutes to go, and we could call for too many men on the ice, which was my fault, and so Fur tied it up. I remember Zinger, he tied it up. Only he could have scored that one, and then they won it in overtime. So that was the one that hurt the worst. I'll tell you.
That's a 79 semifinal, which would have been interesting.
Yeah, that was the semifinal. Right. But anybody who won that was going to win it because we were the two powerful teams were playing. I know it was in the semifinals, but it was whoever won that one was going to win it because we were two powerhouse teams.
Yeah,
and
you would.
It was a tough losing that one, I'll tell you.
Which would have set up the ultimate playoff, the Stanley Cup Finals would have been Park and Rattel versus Espo and Vadnais, because the Rangers had already advanced to the Cup. So that would have been pretty interesting. So you become a national icon in Canada in the broadcast booth. Were you surprised at how quickly you became a legend there in Canada in the broadcast booth?
Well, first of all, I don't know if I'm a legend or not. I was in it a long time, but I did have a lot of fun at it, and I wasn't on much. My son Timothy says the secret of my success was not being on long, and I was not on long. I was on maybe about 7 minutes, and that's it. And I remember I started out, I did color, and I loved doing color. I really did love doing color. And I got in a lot of trouble doing color, and Ralph Mellenby, who was the head guy, said that, well, we'll keep him on something called Coach's Corner for 5 or 7 minutes at the end of the first period, and he won't get in any trouble. Little did he know. But anyhow, that's how Coach's Corner came about. When I first went to when I first went to Hockey Night in Canada, I did color.
So looking back in everything you've accomplished in the game, both on the ice, behind the bench, behind the mic, what are the things you're most proud of for each of them?
I think just the idea of coaching the Bobby Orr and well, I didn't coach him, I opened the door for him, but being with Bobby Orr and having as great as year with me, I think I did something right there. I think that made me awful proud. And believe me, just getting off unemployment, I remember, like I told you earlier, I was unemployed for about 7 months, and I remember when he made the call, he said, "Do you want to coach?" I think that just to get into coaching and being in hockey was just great. And it's kind of tough right now. Like I said, there's a lot more behind me than there is ahead of me. And but hey, listen, I always wanted to go out in my shield. I didn't want to, say, poor old Don, he's gone and everything. I went out down fighting, and I never apologized, and I don't intend to. And so that's what I'm proud of. At least I went out my shield.
So you're in the AHL Hall of Fame, and in Canada, the hotbed of hockey, there's no other figure held in higher regard than Don Cherry. Consider that in 2004, when the NBC network, CBC, ran their poll of the greatest Canadians of all time, you ranked number 7, ahead of any hockey player. So take a second and think about that. Think of all the great Montreal Canadiens or Toronto Maple Leafs players, you ahead of all of them. And if you've ever had the pleasure of being in a bar in Canada, you were taken aback by the ultimate silence during the first intermission of every hockey night in Canada, because every person in that bar is listening to what you have to say. So to a certain extent, you're really the voice of Canada. Are you surprised that you were not in the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Oh, no, I wouldn't be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I remember Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter played, and people remember him. And he said, "I'm not their kind," and I'm not their kind in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And no, it was at the start. I thought, "Holy smokes, I've done enough here." But then I realized that I will never be in the Hall of Fame. I'm just not their kind. That's all. And it doesn't. It bothered me at the start that I wasn't in it, but it doesn't bother me now. I think it's rather comical of some of the people they put in, and so it doesn't bother me at all. And as far as being the greatest Canadian, wasn't the greatest Canadian because maybe I was at that time. I was maybe most popular at the time, and I think they just did it to tick off CBC. So I don't think I was the greatest Canadian. Believe me.
Now, so we know so much has changed with the way the games are being broadcast now with the hub cities and everything, but with your first chance in almost 30 years to watch as a spectator, is there something about the broadcast that you appreciate, that you miss, that used to be in the game and is not there anymore, something like that?
No, I think it's pretty good now, and like I say, watch the games now. I watched them all day and watched them last night. I thought that, no crowd and everything, I thought it would be terrible, but some of them do seem like an outdoor game, but the games, I think the players have forgotten about the crowd and everything, and they're playing great. So, no, I think the broadcast is pretty good now. It's not as good as I was. I mean, I was the best, but they're pretty good. Everybody protects everybody. Everybody says everything, especially now. You better protect yourself the way things are now, and. So no, I my days were numbered. I think because I think that it was so quick. I mean, I just did it Saturday night, and I think I was fired Sunday. So it was pretty quick, and my days were numbered. And my type of broadcasting, I don't think when I do the games, I was a little tougher on the players, and players I liked, I stood up for them a little more. So my how would I say it? My way of broadcasting was biting the dust. I think the way it worked, I made it easy for them. How about that? I'll just say I made it easy for them.
So let me ask you a question. I don't know what year the suits went from Lindsey Nelson to Lindsey Nelson on steroids. How many of those suits do you still own? And do you wear them anywhere else other than when you were doing Coach's Corner?
No, my daughter, my daughter has my daughter Cindy has a dog rescue, and she said, "Dad, how about putting up some of your jackets for people can bid on?" So that's I don't wear them any other place except I better not. I wore them. No, I don't wear them I don't do banquets anymore or anything like that. So I don't wear them, and she took 12 of them, and she's got them up for bid. And I put my shirt with them and my tie with them, my cufflinks, and the whole deal. So no, that's the only thing I do with my suit, my jackets now.
I am going to have to bid on one of those because I'll tell you the truth, Coach. I'm trying to think how many years ago the Frontenacs actually did a tribute to you, and their uniforms were one of your jackets. It was patterned as one of your jackets. It was to me, it was the greatest hockey uniform I ever saw, and they actually auctioned them off. Yeah, it was the plaid. It was brutal, but it was the best thing I've ever seen. I lost out.
Yeah, boy, well, you know what's going on. You must have done some research. You know more things I have already forgotten. But yeah, I remember they did that. They had a shirt and tie. The sweater was a shirt and tie, and Yeah, I signed a few of those there for their auction too. So I think Dougie Gilmore was the president.
Yes, he was.
There, and Dougie was. So I think he did it. I tell you the truth.
Yeah, Dougie was on the show, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. All right, last question. I'm going to put you on the spot. Which 2 teams survived this crazy playoff system and make it to the Stanley Cup Finals this year, and why?
Well, anybody that says they can pick the Stanley Cup is lying. And I still, Boston Bruins, I still think the Boston Bruins. And although Washington doesn't look too good right now, I'll still pick those 2 guys in the finals. I mean, to me, they're the 2 best teams. And I think Boston's kind of getting a little shot here that, they ended up first last year, the 63 points, I think it was. So I'll take those 2, and I'll take the Boston Bruins winning this year, as long as Rask isn't hurt too badly and he gets back playing. So, but anybody that says they can win, they can predict this. It used to be it was Montreal, the Islanders, the Philly, or the Boston Bruins, but not anymore. Boy, anybody's in the finals. Remember LA? They were in it. They made it by 1 point and got in it. So in the finals, I'll say it'll be Boston and Washington again, and hopefully Boston will win.
Awesome. Don, thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for decades of service to the sport of hockey. Where can people listen to your great podcast these days?
Well, they do just listen to Don Cherry's podcast and Spotify, I think, is on. And Tim knows how to do all that, and we have a lot of fun. It's about 50 minutes long, and we just reminisce and we go over things like that. So, but I want to thank you for having me on, and I got to tell you one thing. You remember more things than I remember, and I forget all those, so it's just great, and thanks very much for having me on.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and a huge thrill from a big fan of yours, Don. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
Okay, all the best. Toodaloo.
You got Don Cherry, the one and only Grapes, back with more NHL talk right after these messages.
Since 1952, Solomon's Jewelers has been the name to trust on Long Island for jewelry. Solomon's Jewelers is a 60-year-old family-owned business run by jewelry professionals and Gemological Institute of America graduates. 3 generations of experience let them offer you certified appraisals. They have a highly skilled design, repair, and watchmaker staff on premises for all your restyling needs. Solomon Jewelers offers a wide variety of magnificent designer couture jewelry, name brand watches, and certified diamonds. Solomon Jewelers pride themselves on having the best customer service and support in the jewelry industry. They are there with 60 years of experience behind them to help educate and guide you through every step of your jewelry purchase. Solomon Jewelers has 2 convenient locations to serve Long Island's jewelry needs. 74 Minetto Hill Plaza, Plainview, New York, or 1030 Willis Avenue, Albertston, New York. Visit them on the web at www.solomonjewelers.com. Solomon Jewelers, serving Long Island since 1952.
Since 1964, Prince Associates' commitment has been to provide customers with the best insurance value and service available while maintaining the highest ethical standards and credibility with their clients, carriers, and the public. Prince Associates Incorporated is an independent insurance agency with a broad range of commercial, personal, life, and health products. Prince Associates has aligned themselves with some of the finest carriers to deliver these products to you. So whether you're a business or an individual, Prince Associates can help. Please visit them on the web at princeins.com for an online quote or call them at 516-822-6550. Tell them Mark and AJ sent you. Prince Associates, meeting your every insurance need since 1964.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capis with you this Sunday evening. If you just tuned in, you missed a great half hour with Don Cherry. We will have the archive of that interview up on the website probably sometime tomorrow morning. Right now, it's time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohen, sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with the rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer woods, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit Soho Table Hockey to learn more and start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. All right, Russ. So, very interesting. You know, the entire 2 weeks of Zooms with Coach Quinn, the question must have been asked 10,000 different ways, who's starting in goal, and he wasn't going to divulge that. And then a half hour to game time, no starter was named. So then all of a sudden, you know, speculation started to ramp up that maybe something was up with Igor. We still don't know what it is as of today's Zoom call. He says Igor is, you know, still questionable. Fost is out. Mika Zibanejad did not skate today, but is expected to play in tomorrow's game. Who do you think will be playing in the game tomorrow in goal?
I think it'll be Lundqvist. I think Shesterkin must have tweaked his groin or something. That's what I think, and I think that's why they waited until the last minute. Begrudgingly, Quinn played Lundqvist, but he got a really good game out of him.
Absolutely.
I don't even think the Lundqvist haters could have blamed him for that game.
Not one goal was his fault.
I didn't think any of them were.
Nope. Absolutely. He made some key saves down the stretch. The Rangers were just not the Rangers. There was no speed in their game whatsoever.
We talked about this. Quinn, I was on the Zoom call for the Hurricanes because I wrote about them. And the first thing Brendan Moore said was this game went exactly the way I thought it would go. And I don't think he meant the score. What I think he meant was he knew what Quinn was going to do because he knew he was changing the way the Rangers played. And that played right into the hands of the Hurricanes. Like, that's how the Hurricanes play. You can't out-hurricane them. It doesn't matter who's in net. Everybody was so focused on their goalie not being good, but if you can't get a shot through, it doesn't really matter.
Right, exactly, and that's the interesting thing that I asked the coach that, we understand when the Rangers are at their best, when they're using their speed and they're creative and they exit out of their zone and their transition game. However, does there come a point where stubbornness takes over and they were not able to, move away from that game and just, go, instead of east-west, north-south, and just fire pucks on net? You take a look at some of the Carolinas' goals, and that's how it was generated. And the one Ranger goal was, from the point and the deflection in front. That's what I think you need to do, and that would open up the game. All right, we got a minute, to get the Islanders series. Islanders played very well. They did what the Islanders do. But the strange thing is, even when the Islanders do what the Islanders do, it's always a nail biter. It was a close game, and the Islanders did everything they needed to do. The fact that this series got delayed because of the pause is helpful to them because they do lose Boychuk again, but they do have depth. What did you see out of the Islanders?
Yeah, they total buy-in out of the Trotz system. Varlamov was definitely good enough. Their offense, it just isn't good. I mean, it's just Bob tightened things up, so that made the game closer. I never felt like Florida was ever going to win that game. I just think they're in some sort of disarray. Doesn't seem like all the parts are working together, but the Islanders just can't generate offense. Now, I also think Barry Trotz needs to sort of ease up on Barzal and maybe cut him loose a little bit, because you can't expect Barzal to be this great two-way player and not have his offense suffer. And I think if they really want to go far in the playoffs, you've got to activate him more.
Right. I mean, that was a complaint with him in Washington with the grade 8.
Yeah.
I think the grade 8 just said, I'm doing my thing. I think Barzal is still doesn't have enough in the bank yet to be able to do that. So, all right, Russ, we appreciate it. Russ Cohn here each and every week with the NHL Report. We turn our attention from the ice. We move it over to the hardwood. We bring in Chaim Tauber. Let me actually read who's sponsoring Chaim Tauber. That would be nice of me. It's time now for the Disaster Services NBA Report with Chaim Tauber. If your property has been affected by water or fire damage, look no further than the professionals at Disaster Relief Services. Independently owned and operated, Disaster Cleanup Services is the tri-state leader in property damage cleanup, specializing in water and fire damage, restoration, mold remediation, sewage cleanup, and decontamination, lead and asbestos abatement, and much more. For more information, visit their website at 4 disasters.com. Call today, mention Sports Talk New York for a free in-home inspection at 1-800-297-WATER. That's 1-800-297-9283. Disasters happen. Let us clean it up. All right, so, Chaim, very fitting that the first basket in games is scored by the guy who basically shut down the league. How ironic is that?
Yeah, it's going to be one of those fun trivia questions when, if anybody ever tries to remember the 2020 season or year for that matter, Rudy Gobert is going to be a fun trivia answer.
For sure. All right. So, you know what? The NHL and NBA doing this in a bubble seem to have so far better luck than what's going on with Major League Baseball. Will the bubble and the players, do you think it will be sustainable? Do you think they'll be able to see it through? And do you think we'll make the entire playoff run?
Well, I think so. Personally, I don't know if calling it luck versus Major League Baseball is really fair. They've caught guys before the bubble ever really launched. Pat Connaughton, Eric Bledsoe of the Bucks. They went through rounds of testing before anybody was even admitted to the bubble, and those guys aren't in Orlando. They stopped that entrance into the bubble before it began. The NBA's really been diligent. They have done their work. That being said, you have, a Lou Williams situation where the guy leaves for allowable, acceptable, and understandable reasons. And then, there are pictures found of him beyond just the reason he left for. You find guys who are not honest, guys who can't stick to the code, the snitch hotline or not. This can all fall apart with some player selfishness if it really comes down to it. The NBA has done everything they reasonably can to be successful, and so far the bubble's been great. You've had some great games. You've had some really good matchups. Some of the marquee players are not where they should be, but there's been good competitive basketball. And even though it feels kind of like the beginning of the season, it's a sprint. We're talking about, playoff positioning, seeding, and clinching.
Right.
So they've done a really good job, and fingers crossed, because it's 2020 and I don't want to say anything's too good. I don't want to jinx anything yet, but they've done a really nice job.
All right, Chaim. We appreciate it, and as long as the guys stay away from the wings, we should be able to make it through. Chaim Tauber heard here each and every week with the NBA Report. On the other side of the break, NFL legend Billy Kilmer. So keep it tuned right here, and we'll be back right after these messages.
Hello, this is Bob Garrett, CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health. Through its devastating spread, COVID-19 has touched all of us, leaving an impact on every facet of our lives. I'm so proud of the way Hackensack Meridian Health has mobilized to fight this outbreak. Our team members on the front lines fight tenaciously every day for the health of our patients and community. For us, this fight is personal. We are not only treating your families, but our own families as well. And while many things about COVID-19 remain uncertain, I am certain that together we will win this battle. If you can, please help our patients, our healthcare heroes, and our researchers by making a donation to our COVID-19 response fund. You can learn more at hackensackmeridianhealth.org/COVID-19. Sponsored by the Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Is a friend or loved one's gambling problem affecting your life emotionally, spiritually, or financially? Do you yourself take a toll on the people around you due to a gambling issue? Have the conversation. Visit 800gambler.org for access to a new video on the family, various programs, services, and resources for disordered gamblers, their friends, and or loved ones. At 800gambler, we offer support, treatment, and hope. We're just a phone call or click away. This message sponsored by the Council on Compulsive Gambling in New Jersey, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Cap off a weekend of watching sports by talking about it with Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter on Sports Talk New York. All the intelligent conversation, insightful interviews, and reporters covering every story is right here on 5:40 a.m. from 7 to 8:30 Sunday nights. Check out sportstalknylive.com for previews of upcoming guests and visit their Facebook page for a chance to win prizes. Sports Talk New York, Sunday nights from 7 to 8:30 on 5:40 a.m.
Morris County needs everyone, and especially our Spanish-speaking community, to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and childcare programs, less for schools and student lunches, less for senior citizens, less for community health care, Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, Social Security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
In the wake of the coronavirus, many schools and colleges are utilizing distance learning. While distance learning may be the best way to keep students and school staff safe, students and educators alike will surely miss the personal interactions and social opportunities that take place in regular school settings. Here are some ways to make the most of distance learning. First of all, stay on a schedule. It's easy to put things off when you work from home. Get up, get dressed, and keep regular lunch breaks. Make time for online social interactions. Students can create study groups that can meet online to review lessons and ask questions. Get up and move. Take a break every hour to take a walk around the house. Drink some water and wash your hands. Stay alert and practice healthy habits. Eat dinner as a family. Talk about what you learned each day. Keep a regular sleep schedule. It's easy to get off track and stay up late watching television or playing video games when you don't have to leave the house. Remember, it's still a school day. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hi, I'm Howie Rose, and you're listening to Mark and AJ on 540 Sports Talk New York.
The third baseman, number 11, Mark Rosenman.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. If you missed the first hour, you missed a great 30 minutes with the legendary Don Cherry. Don't worry about it. The archive will be up tomorrow. The Facebook Live archive will be up later tonight. So you didn't miss anything. You'll be able to watch it. And as of always, every single interview is on our website, sportstalknylive.com. Joining us now is a man who played quarterback in the National Football League for the San Francisco 49ers, New Orleans Saints, Washington Redskins. He led the NFL in touchdowns and passer rating in 1972, is regarded as one of the greatest players in Washington Redskins history. He was a two-time All-Pro selection. He was also used as a running back and wide receiver. He played his college football at UCLA, where he led the nation in total offense, 1,869 yards, and was fifth in punting average, 42.3 yards, seventh in rushing, and 19th in scoring. It is a pleasure to welcome a member of the College Hall of Fame, a member of the Redskins and Saints Hall of Fame, the one and only Billy Kilmer. Welcome, Billy.
Hey, Mark. How you doing, pal?
Doing great. Anytime we get to talk to an NFL legend, it's always great. You're a three-sport star playing baseball, football, and basketball at Citrus Union High School, scoring more than 1,500 points in basketball while earning All-American honors in baseball. You won all conference accolades and were selected on the third-team all-conference team in football. After graduation, you spent 1 year at Citrus Junior College playing football and basketball, and you transferred to UCLA the following year, where you get to play for Bill Barnes and the legendary John Wooden in basketball. What did you learn from those two men?
Well, from John Wooden, he learned really good discipline. I mean, he was so organized, and you knew what you were going to be doing every minute of practice. Not 1 minute of practice was wasted. The same way with football. I remember when I went in as a sophomore out of junior college, and I remember my high school days and my junior college days. You'd be out at practice, and they'd just go on, not doing a whole lot, but they weren't organized, and it was for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Well, when I went to the UCLA football, in an hour and a half, we did more in 1 hour and a half than I did in 3 days of high school football and everything. I mean, we were moving all the time and always a drill, but we were always constantly doing something, and then an hour and a half went by, it seemed like nothing, and we were through with practice. So it was organization, really, with me as far as being in college sports compared to high school.
So you finished your college career with an outstanding senior season in 1960, throwing for over 1,000 yards, running for over 800, scored 8 touchdowns, served as the team's punter. You're awarded the 1960 W.J. Voigt Memorial Trophy as the outstanding football player on the Pacific Coast. You finished 5th in the voting for the Heisman Trophy. After the conclusion of a UCLA career that saw you finish among the top 5 in school history for passing and rushing yards as well as total offense, you played in the 1961 College All-Star Game where you earned the Most Valuable Player honors. You're the 11th overall selection of the 1961 NFL Draft taken by the 49ers, and you're selected in the 5th round of the 1961 AFL Draft by the San Diego Chargers. What made you pick the 49ers as opposed to the Chargers at that point?
Well, basically, I always wanted to play in the NFL myself. The American League had only been in operation for a year. And, of course, with the Niners picked me on as one of their number 1 draft choices, that made a little difference. Not so much when I got picked by the Chargers, they were still in L.A. They hadn't moved to San Diego yet, during the draft. And I was 5th, but I found out later that they had already signed about 4 players ahead of me anyway before they drafted. Back in those days, there was a big war on between NFL and AFL. That's why Don Klosterman had worked for the Chargers back in those days, and he told me years later that they had already signed Keith Lincoln and some of the guys that they had gotten early. They had signed them before they drafted them, so... Anyway, but it didn't make any difference. I wanted to be in the established NFL, and I was on the West Coast, 49ers. I really wanted to play for the Rams. I was disappointed the Rams didn't draft me, but anyway, that's why I stayed with San Francisco.
It's interesting. As a rookie, you are used primarily as a running quarterback in Red Hickey shotgun formation. You rushed for 509 yards, 10 touchdowns, and including amazing day against the expansion Vikings, where you rushed for 4 touchdowns. The following season, you used primarily as a halfback. Now, Granted, the 49ers had John Brody, but I have to imagine it's still a little frustrating that you did have 1,000 yards in the air in college, and Hickey limited you to 47 passing attempts in your first 2 seasons. Was that frustrating for you as a young player at that point?
Well, especially we ran the shotgun my rookie year. We had some initial success there in about 3 games, and and I remember after I scored the 4 touchdowns. The next week we spent in Milwaukee. In those days, we stayed in the towns because we had to play the Bears the next week. So we stayed in the East and worked out for a week. And so I remember Sports Illustrated came and did a whole layout on us and said this was, and like it's going to be the offense of the 60s, the new shotgun, with the 3 quarterbacks and all that. Well, they did the layout and everything. And then we went down to Chicago and played them, and they beat us 31-0. And then we stayed in Chicago and went and played Pittsburgh the next week. And we played them a good game, but they beat us by a few 3 or 4 points, I forgot. And then we went back to San Francisco and played Detroit again, which we had beat 49-0. It started the deal there for 3 games. And we tied them, and so after that, those games, I really didn't play much that rest of that 1961 season because they shelved the shotgun. The Bears came to town. They went back to the tee and ran the tee the rest of that year.
Maybe your most memorable player as a 49er was a fumble. You catch a pass from George Myra, you fumble it, and it's recovered by Vikings defensive end Jim Marshall, who infamously ran 66 yards in the wrong direction. What was your reaction to that play as you saw it play out?
Well, I got hit from behind and the ball came flying out. They turned me around and I was going towards their goal. And I think it was Carl Kasulki came out and hit me and the ball just tumbled out. And it took one little hop and Marshall was on a dead run. And he just grabbed it and kept going, And all I said, I hope he drops the ball in the end zone, we get a touchdown. But he threw it in the stands, and we only got 2 points, so we lost the game anyway.
February 10th, 1967, you're selected in the expansion draft by the New Orleans Saints. You become the team's starting quarterback for much of the next 4 seasons. What did Coach Fear's confidence in you mean to your career at that point?
Well, it meant really that everything, because that was at the end of my career. The 49ers, after in 62, they made me a running back, and I played pretty good that season. I had a 5-yard average and everything, but I got in that car accident that broke that leg off, and that was the end of my running days. And if I was going to stay in the NFL, I had to convert back to quarterback. You talk about the fumble that in 64 when I came back after I laid off a year. They made me a running back, and I was only there for about 5 or 6 games. I always worked out as a third-team quarterback, and then Brody got hurt that year, and I ended up the backup to Myra at the end of 64. And then after that, I backed up Myra and Brody. They kept 3 quarterbacks for 66 and 65 and 66 seasons. And only because, we had, our squads were only 39 squad members, but we had a kicker, Tommy Davis, that was a punter and a place kicker. So they kept 3 quarterbacks, and I was lucky to even stick around. My career could have been over back in the early 60s. So when I went to the Saints, I knew this was going to be, if I was going to make it, I had to make it there. And Tom Fierce gave me a chance to play. He, of course, they traded for Gary Quazzo and gave up 2 number ones for him. But during training camp, it was a long training camp back in those days, and we had 2 days from June 29th all the way to September, and we had players coming in and out, and I played in all the exhibition games, and I played very well. And when we got to the first league game, I was surprised the Fears named me the starter. So for the first game that the Saints ever played against the Rams.
So, and as we mentioned, you remained the starter for the first 4 years, pretty much. What's it like being the quarterback of an expansion team as it's starting to forge its identity with a whole new fan base? And what was it like to be on the ground floor of a fledgling franchise?
Well, it was especially as a quarterback, because we had our offensive line changed back and forth, and I didn't know. We had 2 good guards in a center. Well, actually, 2 good guards and a tackle who became a center. And other than that, they weren't too good. And our offense showed it. Our defense was pretty good, but we got smacked around pretty good. And I had to get rid of the ball pretty quick. That's all I know.
So January 23rd, 1971, you're traded to the Washington Redskins, which incidentally is the first trade the team made after George Allen replaced Vince Lombardi as a head coach. It was a move to bolster the reserve role behind future Hall of Famer Sonny Jurgensen. Jurgensen suffered a shoulder injury in preseason game against the Dolphins, and you would take over the starting job, and you would keep it for most of the next 4 seasons, one of which includes a trip to the Super Bowl. You lead the 1972 squad to an NFC best 11-3 record. You led the NFL in touchdown passes with 19, passing rating of 84.8. Looking back on that season, what are some of the memories that stand out most? And walk us through what it's like being the quarterback for a team in the Super Bowl and all the pressure that comes with it.
Well, the key on the Redskins was George Allen when he came there, and the Redskins had a good offense. We had Charlie Taylor, Larry Brown, Jerry Smith. He traded for Roy Jefferson, a receiver. We had a very good offensive line already. I mean, Sonny before me threw for a lot of yards behind that line for a few years there before I got there. And the defense was what was missing there. When George came in, he traded for some Rams that he had, Jack Pardee, Darren Talbert, Myron Patios. He got all those really good defensive players in there. And and a couple other defensive backs. And so he strengthened our defense. And that's what made our team, is that defense that he had, and our offense. And, the first year I was there, and I got the job because Sonny broke his shoulder there in that exhibition game down here in Miami, I got the job. We won our first 5 games of the year that year, and boy, you thought Washington had come alive because they had been, losers for 30-some years there. And I think they only had one winning season when Lombardi had been the coach there in '69. And, it was, we just made the whole town come alive. And that team could have been one of our best. We were 5-0, and we went to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. And I threw 2 touchdown passes that early in the game to Charlie Taylor. And on the second one, he went across the goal line, and they fell on his leg and broke his fibula. And he was out for the year. I really guarantee if Charlie had been on our team that year, we would have been in the Super Bowl again, I know, or been there the first time, and gone on from there. And he was really having a great year at the time, and it hurt our offense. But anyway, the next year he came back healthy, and the '72 is when we had our big Super Bowl years, and the highlight for me of that year, not because we didn't win the Super Bowl, was beating Dallas on New Year's Eve in the championship game.
Great game for sure. So Sonny Jurgens stays on as your backup. Fans in Washington tended to be loyal to one quarterback or the other. Lots of them could be seen at games reading buttons that said, "I like Billy" or "I like Sonny." What was the rivalry like between the two of you?
Well, it was actually, Jurgensen and I were friends. I mean, we got closer and closer as the years went on. I mean, as we played, of course I wanted to play. Of course he wanted to play. But we were older, and I'd been in the league 10 years. I never won anything in football. And here I knew that, and Sonny did too, because he hadn't won much. He was in Philadelphia when they won that championship, but Van Brocklin was a quarterback, and he was just a backup. So we knew that we couldn't show any kind of selfishness on our part. We had to work together. Whoever was in there, we helped them to win, and we wanted to win. That's all. We wanted the squad to win, and that's how we stayed together. There was no egos involved, and I guess that's why we got along so well. We're still friends today.
So in your 8 years with Washington, you went 50, 23, and 1 as a starter, completed 953 of 1,791 passes for 12,352 yards and 103 touchdowns. All of those games were under head coach George Allen, and a large majority of them were under offensive coordinator Ted Marchibroda. What was it about George and Ted that complemented your style of play so well that allowed you to have that great success in Washington?
Well, George didn't fool with the offense at all. He'd come into a meeting and he'd just say, "Look, don't throw any interceptions, don't fumble, just take care of the football," and and left us alone. He didn't worry about what plays we were going to run or anything. But I'll tell you about Ted. Ted probably really helped me. I was, I had no really training as a quarterback. I came out of college as a single wing tailback. I had never learned the mechanics of being a quarterback, taking the drop and center and everything. I mean, I did it. I did it in with the Saints, but I never had anybody show me the proper techniques to even drop back, and do that. And Ted was a stickler for fundamentals, and Ted, every day from the day that I was with Ted there for, I think, 4 years, 71, 2, 3, and 4, that I had to do drop backs every day before practice, and I had to, do fundamental things that a quarterback, should do. And Ted was great. He probably helped my career, kept my longevity better than anybody.
So you also get a chance to mentor a young quarterback the Redskins acquired in 1974, a Notre Dame alumnus called Joe Theismann, who had been a star in the Canadian Football League for 3 seasons. What was your impression of a young Joe Theismann, and what were some of the things you tried to instill in him? And could you tell that he was going to be something special?
Well, first of all, he came in when we were on strike, and they went up to training camp, all the rookies, and they had, and we never did get to training camp that year. I don't believe, no, we didn't. And I was 74. And so, he came down, he came to Washington, played they had an exhibition game against Houston, and he played pretty good. None of the guys that on the team even went to the game or anything. And he played good. Then the next day in the paper, I guess some reporters asked him, well, what are you going to do when Jurgensen and Kilmer come back to camp? And he said, well, I'll put those 2 old men on the bench. And I called Sonny. I read it. I called him that Sunday morning. And I said, Sonny, did you read what this is? He said, yeah, I saw it. He said, we'll have them catching punts by the end of the year, which we did.
Oh, it's awesome. All right. So you finished your 16-year NFL career with 1,585 completions in 2,984 attempts for 20,495 yards, 154 touchdowns, 146 interceptions. You rushed for 1,509 yards, 21 touchdowns, caught 27 passes, 1 touchdown, punted the ball 16 times. All of that put you in the Hall of Fame for your college days, the Hall of Fame for both the Saints and Redskins. So here's the big question. Do you think you belong in the NFL Hall of Fame as well?
Probably not, because my career, I didn't start playing quarterback till I'd been in the league over, 6 years. And I really, I only had maybe 10 years as a quarterback, and played with the Saints, which statistically, for the team I played with there, we did all right. I mean, but I didn't have the statistics and everything that a lot of these quarterbacks are. I don't worry about the Hall of Fame. I don't think I deserve to be in there. If I hadn't broke my leg and maybe in the car accident, things might have been different. Who knows?
Your numbers stack up comparably to a number of quarterbacks that are in there. The argument obviously can definitely be made that you do belong there. Lastly, having played for Washington and wore that uniform, that helmet for all those years, what do you make of the name change?
Well, I don't like it. I'm always going to be a Redskin forever, and so I'll leave it at that. I can't get into all the things. They tried to change the name back when I was playing for them. They had a group of Indians that would be at the stadium every Sunday, chanting or something about it. But, and I think George Allen one time asked some guys on the reservation, about, if they were offended about the Redskin name, and he got no negativity out of them. In fact, I heard that there was a team out in Arizona that was on a Indian reservation out there, and their team name was the Redskins, and so they thought it was a badge of courage. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm too old to fool with all that stuff.
Billy, thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for 16 great years representing the NFL. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure's all ours, Billy. Thanks so much. Saint and Redskins Hall of Famer Billy Kilmer. Quick break. On the other side, we'll get to the NFL report with Jay Retcher, so keep it tuned right here.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Apiece with you this Sunday evening. Got to tip my hat to Mike and Ryan. They're running the board, and they for rookies, man, it's flawless so far tonight. I don't want to jinx them because now something's probably going to happen, but doing a great job. It's time now for the Just Escape NFL report with Jay Retcher. Just Escape is back. Looking for something fun to do with your friends and family after being stuck in the house for months? Well, you might not want to do it with your family if you've been with them for months. You might want to just go with your friends. Test your problem-solving skills at Just Escape in Massapequa. Have an experience like no other with 5 fun and challenging rooms, all varying in difficulty and scare factor. Just Escape is a perfect, unique day out for all ages. Great for corporate and fundraising events and birthday parties, too. Don't forget to use the promo code FINALLY for 20% off your next booking. Visit justscapeli.com to see all of the new safety protocols they put in place and book your room today. That's justscapeli.com. Speaking of safety protocols, there are a whole bunch of them going on for NFL camps. Jay, you were sent one by the Tampa Bay franchise. Fill us in a little bit what the NFL is doing to try and minimize, COVID-19 related cancellations, things that we're seeing going on in baseball. How's the NFL trying to combat all of this?
Yeah, well, the first obviously thing is, we're not going to have a standard training camp like we've seen in years past. And I know down here in Tampa Bay, a lot of fans aren't too happy. They have like this Bucs curse down here. And then, of course you get Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and now LaShawn McCoy. Of course this is the kind of year that it would happen. But it looks like there's 2 different kind of tiers of media. The majority of the stuff's going to be on Zoom calls. I'm sure everybody's zoomed out by now. But I know a bunch of my friends have already went over to One Buck Place to get COVID tested. They're probably going to have to go get tested again. There's a thing on Tuesday at 7:30, so I'm going to try to head over there. And I'm still waiting on figuring out if I have to go on Monday to get my COVID testing. So it's going to be interesting to see how each team handles it. But and I've seen you doing your job with the Zoom with the Rangers stuff. So it's going to be a lot more of that. But I'll know more and more over the next couple weeks as more information comes out.
In one respect, it's good because you're probably getting more. Well, you're not getting more player avail. All right. It's hard to put this in words. You are getting more player availability, but it's not the players. The team is controlling the players, whereas you and I would go into a locker room, and even though they did control who was out in the locker room, now you're getting complete control by the team, who they're giving you to speak to. And, whereas in a scrum, you might be able to fire off 4 or 5 questions. You're raising your hand, getting one, and then you're being muted and the next person's getting it. So it's going to be interesting, but that's the least of everything. You mentioned the Tampa Bay, curse. Yeah, I have to imagine all these season ticket holders that were chomping and foaming at the mouth to be able to see Brady in that stadium are now not going to get that. We got 30 seconds, so try to answer that in as a concise manner as you can, Jay.
No problem.
Jay, you there? I think his call dropped out. All right, so Yeah. All right. So we hope you enjoyed the show. If you missed any of it, the archive will be up after the show. The podcast of both guests, Don Cherry and Bill Kilmer, will be up as well. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see everyone next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio. For questions and comments, please send us an